Today's conspiracy theories, tomorrow's headlines. Most are still asleep and I ain't talking about no bedtime. The truth is not a Google search, you need to get your head right. The Greek goddess of illusion was called Media and I'm not a coincidence theorist, I look for thread lines. Smashing every deadline, no longer smashing red wine. Though I can hear the bells chime, it feels like the end times. That probably should have been smashed on red wine, but the carnal mind is foolish. Obey and end up ghoulish. Don't get used by instinct, take control and learn to use it. Make a load of earnest music, earn a few quid, learn a few tricks. Sure, the truth is persecuted, this whole world is pure abusive. Know a bit about everything and everything about nothing. Figured out my noggin while you picture out shopping. You sit about watching while I dish it out, stop it. I don't mean to sound cocky, I'm not even proud of it. It's a second itch to me just to be this out honest. I don't even need to sound honest, never been about profit. Everything but out on it, you can bet your house on it. Doubt I'll be out for the count when the sounds, and I'm down for the beat, no beat down. I mean, how long's it been? Help me out. I've been the only one who's held me down. All in the mind, hell freeze now. Still sick with it, healthy how? Few bars down and the world freaked out. I don't reach out, I seek out to speak out. I'ma recount the reasons they beat out.
Yo, good morning, good afternoon, my dear friends and family across this beautiful globe of water. Hey, that's what we got today. You know, cannabis legalization is right on the brim, but cannabis wouldn't grow without water. So we're talking to my man, John from Natural Action Technologies, and he's going to run it down on what you need to know about water. And honestly, this is a blast. This is going to be a fun one, all right? So, first of all, I'd like to go ahead and, just tell you guys, like, subscribe, share, and go check out my sponsors over at Tweedle Farms for all your hemp supply. If you don't want to get a high and lose your job, hemp is what you need, and it's been that way all along. It got the perfect CBD for you to activate that CBD system, activate that healing. And Tweedle Farms does it right. They got a wide variety. Use coupon code 509 Divine Pines 10 off your order and score yourself some nice flower. Now, let's go ahead and get to my man, John. Hey, John, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing amazing, man. It's a little chilly up here in the Northwest, but I'm working out. I got my cannabis. I'm eating right. I'm feeling warm.
Good.
So, hey, what can you tell my viewers about your business, what you do, and hey, thank you for coming on. I appreciate this.
Sure. You just had George Wiseman on, and he does the Browns gas.
Yes, sir.
And apart from really digging fishing and being in nature and hiking, I was kind of always that way. It's kind of my own little mystery of how I viewed all that, and I really didn't share it. It was more of an inward thing, right? And then at some point, I had an engineering background, pretty deep engineering background, and I was into racing cars, really into building engines and stuff like that. So some people approached me and said, "Hey, we got this water technology, and these people are saying, it cleans up emissions and makes the fuel mileage better, but we don't know if it's bullshit or not. So we want you to look into it before we invest in it." And so I did, kind of reluctantly, but it turned out like there was truth in it, and it was obvious. Certain people I'm very qualified to analyze engine and power professionally, so it's not like I'm just a guy guessing at it at this point. So it was obvious right away that this thing, which they didn't say was water, when I dug into it, I'm like, yeah, this is basically water. And I put it in my laboratory and isolated it to being water, which was different than how the HHO and Brown's gas people viewed it. They renamed it something else, but scientifically, I could validate that the O bonding was still connected to the H in its ignited form. So I started studying the visible kind of spiritual form of water that was in an implosive state. And I could tell it was implosive rather than explosive. And it's basically cold fusion, right? So right there, and I had a nuclear background, so I was very well aware of cold fusion and the debate and what they said about it versus regular fission, and what goes on there. That was my background, was nuclear engineering, and more or less, it just blew me away, like just being in the presence of this thing. So right then, I coupled up like engineering, technically unified field with water, right? And it just set my life in a totally different direction. So I worked with George a little bit. I built some of his design machines, and I worked with those other guys on automobiles. I won't mention names just because there's been a melee of rotten history there of kind of people fighting, right? And I just like to stay out of the fight and get to work and go in the right direction without all the drama. So barring all the drama, I went into industrial scale development. My family was in big steel. And so we worked in a lot of steel mills around the country. And they're one of the most toxic, heavy, polluting things that exist. And so I thought, wow, if we could put this in there and start working that direction, it'd be good. And so for 4 years, there's some problems with it, both on the HHO side and the Brown's gas side as far as going to scale. So I worked on resolving those problems. I was able to resolve them, and I made some ground into the industrial sector. But that big machine doesn't really want to change, and some more funny things happened in that. And I'll just say that's the way the universe arranges the story, rather than go down the conspiratorial road. But certainly there has been intention hiding these simple, beautiful things that come from nature, that exist in nature. And Victor Schauberger was one of the biggest guys to point that out, that we're completely taught backwards, that we're taught heat expansion cycles that basically will make the whole planet cancerous. And he started telling everybody that in the 1920s. Cancer wasn't really even understood or over discovered at that point from a pathological sense. What he meant by the word cancer was basically pathologically destructive to its own environment. So he makes this prediction, right? I stumble across him because I realized I always looked at cold cycles and implosion rather than the heat cycles to improve efficiency. You know, do you do the same thing in a race engine? There's vortexing involved in a race engine. There's all these similarities in the engineering terms of fluid mechanics and what works better, what makes more efficiency versus not. However, what really changed for me is I was studying the vibrations of very powerful electrical circuits placed on a liquid body of water. Let's just put it like that. And the water dominated the electrical circuits and mutated them in a certain way that electrical engineering doesn't predict. And it had a pattern or a rhythm, which took me 4 years to figure out. And it turns out it was really something simple. It was the phi ratio. And basically, water was dominating the electrical circuit by holding it to phi ratios, both in the XY amplitudes. And this is how the whole entire universe is made from our perspective, how trees grow, how the human body's made, how a dolphin's made. So that dictate is in water of life to follow this algorithm. And there's even a simpler form of it where any two random numbers will make phi in the Fibonacci sequence algorithm, but it's any two random numbers. It's not the linear version like 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. It's not like that. It's any two random numbers. And so there's this mathematical program in water that takes any two opposites and learns how to wind them together into harmony, is more or less what it's doing. And that's what it does with electrical power. That's how the mitochondria work. Dr. Krebs even knew this, that it's not a carbohydrate heat cycle. We're not burning fuel. We're recombining water at the end of this cycle. So for me, there's the turning point where I dedicate my life to studying water. I got involved. So this was circa about 2008. And so I come across this company, Natural Action Technologies, and called them up. And I said, here's what I found on paper, recorded. It's a fact. The water is intelligent. Water is a computer. Water is receiving vibrations and reiterating them back to the environment in a very specific, different way than how we understand frequency. And I started consulting for the company and helping them evolve. So I worked with the original owner very closely. And then in 2017, I kind of started to take over the company and the direction and bring a little bit more engineering and articulation to the spiritual side of structured water or water revitalization, which is not a new thing at all. It goes way back to Victor Schauberger, 100 years. It goes 300 years back, I found, to the Hopi Indians, had a version of what we sell today made out of clay. And then it goes back to the Egyptian pyramids, where there's some items in the Smithsonian that indicate they understood water plasma back then. So that's kind of where I begin the journey, and wherever you want to take it from here.
Well, yeah, I'm a bit into the spiritual aspect. You see, yes, into the Egyptian pyramids. There's a whole bunch of water speculation. I understand that water holds memory. So when you say that water is this ethereal power, and you can do things with the number ratio. I mean, that's powerful. Right now, if water can hold memory, we can assume that it's a living essence in some sort, right? We understand that the ancients believed water had some type of power. There were water sprites and water spirits inside water itself, and yes, you're right on a point to say that this goes back ancient times. What we understand right now in our days is very limited. It's been that way due to Rothschild money and very, very rich families who want to our knowledge in certain countries, right? It's not every country, but certain countries that are held under a certain, like, old school Babylonian type empire. We're just kind of stuck in this box knowledge. But when we seek other cultures, as you mentioned, the Hopi Indians. So what is this with the Hopi Indians? What about clay? I mean, that's fascinating. You can
Well,
go
they
ahead,
have a
continue
physics.
on.
The Mayans and the Hopis have a physics that we're just coming to now in modern science, like just kind of arriving at this understanding where everybody's like, oh shit, we got to cross the spiritual border in order to get this physics to work. Meaning, our consciousness plays a role in creation, a significant role. We're very powerful as human beings in the role of creation. And that's more or less where the competition or jealousy or envy or fear, right? Fear-based peoples, however you want to look at them throughout history. I look at it spiritually, like the Rothschilds represent a spirit that's fearful, that's trying to control things, right? But within that tribe, there's good people, there's bad people, there's evil people, there's angelic people within those tribes, right? So you can't like over collectivize it. But in general, the system that has been implemented is kind of a male system, a fear-based power control system, right? That we would call that from the underworld. So when we rewind, to the Mayans and what their understanding of the underworld is, that's like where you learn, where you get your lessons, right? Your hard teachers, the more hardcore side of things, like really, really connect with you with impact, things you'll never forget, right? And so more or less their take on it with this physics is precisely like a unified body. You'll hear about the Akashic record or the Akash, right? Where there's this record within the sea of the universe that stores everything and anything that ever went wrong on for all time. And what you see with all the greats, the great alchemists and Walter Russell, is that basically they say like the planets are floating in water, which is the ether, but it's a lighter form than liquid water here on Earth. So basically liquid water on Earth is the ether in physical form. And I came to that same conclusion as myself on my own, but in deeper study understood like the Hopis and a lot of the indigenous tribes throughout the world, they understood it exactly the same way. So if you really wanted to connect to the universe and the unknown, the mystery within it, water was the way you really did it. So you didn't travel by getting in a spacecraft and taking off to space. And like a lot of the tribes and talked about like the star people that would come down and visit. So they said they got a lot of their plant knowledge and things from the people who visited from the stars. But I think the more advanced, friendly people from the stars, if that story were true, taught them you don't need to leave this planet. You need to care for this planet and care for yourselves. And we're given sacred knowledge. And that's where the cannabis plant comes from and the understanding of it, and the ayahuasca and where it comes from, and where all the plant medicine, combo and all these different things that are indigenous. But when modern day science studies them, they're like, holy shit, it's changing the shit out of the pathology of the body and is doing things that modern medicine couldn't even begin to think about doing. And, for me, it became very practical. Like, I studied the growth of cannabis in living soil. And in order to have living soil, you can't dump dead water on it all the time. Right. And so that, like, deep into how all this connects together, and what the difference is, like cannabis plants grown in a living soil. And to the point, like, science doesn't really get this. The Hopi Indians, the Mayans, the indigenous cultures, people left with common sense today, they kind of get this. But the terpene profile completely flips upside down when you grow in living soil. And so my question was an engineer is, how do we define living water? How do we define living soil? More from an engineering perspective. But I will tell you, this is entirely derived from the spiritual connection. That's what drives it 100%,
And it's interesting you mentioned terpenes. Terpenes are the complete essence to life. You got these little like flavonoids that are around Earth, around all these animals, around all these flowers, right? And it's water based. Am I correct?
Yeah, water becomes a carrier for the homeopathic side of it, where if you walk through the forest, you're breathing all sorts of terpenes and you can feel it in your body.
So what would some of these you talked about the water that's damaged, right? And so how would it relate to these terpenes that are damaged, and what would they be doing to the body?
It's simple. You can make a correlation. You've heard of like autoimmune and the nervous system being, sympathetic or parasympathetic, and your body getting stuck. Well, the same patterns occur in the soil, the plant, the human body, and the water. And the water is where it's easy to see because you're looking at something that's simple. If you look at a human body, it's a complex creature. Even a tree or a plant in the soil are full of complex living creatures, right? But it's this ecosystem of trade and balance. And so our bodies are governed by water first, then by the microbials. And a lot of people don't realize this, like those are spirits. So first you're governed by the divine spirit of water, and air is a continual high frequency exchange we do, which also has water vapor in it, right? And
so that's been a thing I've been on for a year. I'm literally looking at air in a whole new light.
Yeah, and I think George probably mentioned it to you. The water plasma you can breathe as an air source. So it's like an alchemic higher form of air, albeit you can overuse it. You will. I used to do it all the time. Like I was like, I don't need any coffee. This stuff straight up, So I used to work 18, 20-hour days, and I'd come into work and fire up the plasma machine, let it warm up a little bit, and then I'd breathe the water plasma gas. And it gives you energy. I mean, you're breathing like raw energy on both poles, when you get into the life force energy study, but you can abuse it, right? It's like, that's where I realized it doesn't matter. Just too much and too little are universal principles that and timing derive everything. Like music's the same way, right? We're trying to play a harmony here. We're not trying to make an odd beat, like pots and pans clanking around type situation as human beings. And that's really the simple common sense. We're trying to live on this planet in harmony with each other and with the planet, and we sort of suck at it. That's what we have to admit right now. And we really can't blame anybody. We have to deprogram. We got a pretty bad program, like half the story. That some of that stuff we were all taught is very useful, but we're missing the other half of the story. And,
A
that's
lot of
part of
these
my mission
alchemicals.
is to
Yes.
rebuild that,
So
that
let's go
common
ahead
sense.
and talk about what Natural Action Technologies is all about. What you guys got, and how can you guys change the game for a lot of my viewers? I understand that you guys got some water purifiers and some mineral supplement for your water, and let's go ahead and hear about this.
All right. So the tech is basically from like engineering side. It's been around a long time in the engineering world, not very well understood, right? And it was more applied to process systems. So you basically take energies from materials and motion. You induce motion in the water that copies nature. And we have a certain recipe that we use. We use shungite and an ancient quartz, and so we can get it out to a lot of people eventually, right? This is how the whole thing was designed, is so whether you're traveling or in your home, we can kind of bring you living water. And I'm not saying it's as good as what you get. I was 24 years old in Montana the first time I would consider to have ever drunk in real living water that has medicinal value. But I knew it the moment I drank it. And I was like, wow, most of this entire planet 7 billion people is never going to drink real water. And that was when I was 24 years old. So 24 years later, I'm proud to say that I had no idea 24 years ago I would be contributing to bringing living water into people's homes and expressing the value of that, right? Getting rid of the stress in the water helps get rid of the stress in the body, whether it's a plant body, a cellular body, or an earth body. Everybody is contributing at that point to the little picture of themselves and the big picture of the whole environment. Because the first thing we're supposed to do as an animal is ingest things and then secrete them as fertilizer to raise the quality in the planet. Right now, we're totally failing in the most basic thing we're supposed to do, because we're ingesting poison and we're secreting poison now. And water is the biggest binder and transformer of those toxins. So it goes deep and it goes very holistic. Secondly, we do filtration, and I studied filters a lot. So I'll give you a little bit of a parody again with nature and mankind and its technology. The solution to pollution is transformation and dilution. Mankind jams everything back together and concentrates, right? In a filter, we jam all the toxins together. Then everybody throws it in the trash can. Then it goes back to the landfill. Then the rain comes and washes it down back to the waterways. It goes back in the rivers. We scoop that back up and try and filter it out again. And that's our whole cycle, right? Big mistake. That's where we are with stressing the water and putting these patterns of stress in the water that screw up the way the plant grows. And what's funny about it is you can't tell by looking at the plant, but you can tell by the smell of the plant, the feel of the plant. If you're growing it in your bite, you can tell the difference. Your casual observer would walk up and the plant on steroids with the terrible poisonous terpene profile would look pretty dang good. But they would claim that, yeah, you can grow in living soil, but you can't grow like we can grow. Well, we proved all that long. I mean, we were growing like CBD bias plants, and we had 200 plants in a control in living soil, and the bottom colas were as big as a 6-foot man's forearm, the bottom ones, and there was a 50 to 75 cola per plant, and it was ridiculous. It was better than anything we saw in the artificial grow, and it took us 2 years to get there. The first year we had to transform the soil. The second year, the soil was alive and doing its own thing and maintaining its own chemistry. And we didn't use a single pesticide, and we allowed the pathogens to come in and take the bottom of the plant. So we didn't fight nature, right? And that's the whole thing. Like, with what we're doing is more than creating devices that are revolutionary because they don't wear out. So a lot of people are like, man, these things are expensive. And we're like, yeah, but it's about an education, customer service, and the fact that you're going to improve your water for the rest of your life. And this thing is never going to wear out. You're going to contribute to the planet. And it costs us a lot of money to market, to educate, to build high quality units that are built like tanks that don't break, because these are plumbing parts, right? So early on in the company, we weren't a plumbing company. So, it was tough to build units that go in homes for an entire life that will never fail, that will never leak, that will perform as good as they did, if not better, from the day you put them in to the end. And then the mineral we use is a volcanic mineral that has had great success in healing people. I'm not going to say anything specific about what type of disease, but people have gotten better. I don't believe in cures. I believe in maintenance and healing and holistic maintenance. And you are the cure for yourself. You're never going to buy a single thing that's going to cure you, but you'll buy a lot of things that you learn how to use. Water is the single simplest thing you could do for yourself that you will do every day, hopefully for the rest of your life, because that's what will keep you younger. That's what will make your supplements work better. That's what will make your CBD receptors work better, your brain receptors, for this understanding. And it has a consciousness effect. So when you start to drink living water, you start to produce more natural DMT. You start to dream more. You start to travel more. You start to lucid dream more. So there's a whole side to it. And then you don't need as much of the substance, right? Because the water is an amplifier for all substances. And so that's kind of what we do in the more spiritual sense rather than the engineering side. But we do like to say we are very well-founded in the principal basics of providing good, high-quality products along with it. And the filters we use are basically high-quality carbon structures that are similar to what you do when you make a diamond. And it's like the filtration works by spreading out the toxins, not packing them like low-quality carbons or membranes like RO systems where you're spitting out like poisonous water into the environment as you're, stripping the water clean and making it juvenile. And water has its own life cycle. So what we do is allow a maturation or an improvement to any type of water, to distilled water, which is juvenile. When you look at the structure of distilled water, it's all circles. It's very round. And that's the same thing that happens to water when you expose it to direct sunlight. It turns into little round structures. And it'll actually degrade the structure in sunlight. As Victor Schauberger pointed out, deforestation kills the highest quality blood flow on the planet, which is, about mid-drift mountain stream, about 7,000 feet at that altitude at 39 degrees Fahrenheit, after it's come out of the earth and learned all the minerals through the strata first, and then the surface rocks, which rivers are full of gold and all sorts of elements that program the water into the materialistic world because it's all made out of atoms. And so water is basically exposed to the whole atomic table as it's coming up through the earth, and then the evolution of those materials as they go down the river. So what we're trying to do, and we do pretty well, is simulate that. The shungite contains almost every atom known to man except the radioactive stuff. And so that's the primary thing we use to program the water. So it's not just buckyballs or carbon-60. It's carbon-60 and then the whole aging train of carbon. We're in a carbon cycle, which is your soil, right? And so this is the way you kind of define living water under the microscope. Are the right angle patterns gone? Yes. The right angle patterns go away just through our portable unit, right? You take your tap water, put it through the portable unit, and the right angle patterns go away and indicate a living signature that you see in natural mountain streams. And we have a very unique shape. It kind of looks like a sea urchin or looks like quartz crystals when the shape changes of the crystallization evaporates within the water. A guy by the name of Andreas Schultz did that testing and developed a very unique way of defining whether the water was energetically toxic or not. And what he came up with is that if there's a little bit of toxins in the water will bind those toxins if it's alive and never give it up to your body. If that water's dead, then that will contribute to the dead water in your body and trap those toxins in your body. So you get some light detoxing from this structured water, revitalized water, and then you get delivery of nutrients. And we teach a lot of this stuff in more detail. It gets really long-winded to go, well, how do you know all this? But it's really simple stuff. Like if you pour orange juice, like a artificial orange juice through our device, it will completely change the carbohydrate protein structure to make it more absorbable and more digestible. Whereas if you didn't do it, the orange juice would be considered more of a toxin from the human body because it's got a chemical signature in it. And it's kind of true for almost anything, even though it sounds crazy.
Well, everything does run off frequencies, and when we're looking at the whole world and how we're being manipulated and bombarded, and through all these GMOs, everything has been altered. We're looking at the river systems too; they're being altered. The frequencies, the patterns, the life force, the memories, and that does relate to some of our own experiences on this planet. It seems like there's like this wash down every generation. It seems dimmer and dimmer, the spirit, the consciousness, the ether inside of people. I do see that over 100 years this has been a long plan. I'm sure you can go ahead and say the same. And looking at these crystalline networks, right? So we are crystals. We have quartz inside. The ancients knew about the crystal capacity and the capabilities when they made these architectural structures, these magnificent structures we see all across the world. This is okay. The shungite. I've heard a lot about that. Personally, I was actually going to get it. So would I just not need to get it, and your device is perfectly, you got the shungite?
Well, when you combine, so I've done a lot of testing, with more sophisticated instruments, right, that get deeper into the science, and I'll just skip that. But as far as what we can see in those sophisticated instruments, if I take a rock of shungite and stick it in a glass of water and then look at the change, there for sure is a change. But it's very insignificant to when you take that shungite and turn it into a superconductor or a dielectric, like a computer crystal, right? Is metals put into solution into silicon, and that's how a computer works, right? So the metals are really, really small. So when nanoparticles came about, right, this creates charge separation. Like, let's look at it like red blood cells. If the red blood cells need to maintain distance between themselves, when you get sick, they all fall on top of each other in a big pile. They call it reloading, right? And that's an indicator that your blood's not really healthy, right? So there's a charge around a healthy cell. When you smash everything together, it's not quite the same. So I'm sure maybe you've heard of Ormus and monatomic gold and the Hudson story.
I have to. I was taking Ormus products a couple years ago, actually.
Yeah, some of our products have our Ormus in them, made into a crystal. So when you make the water flow a certain way and you vortex it a certain way, right? So most people think of vortexing as left thing rotating or a right thing rotating when you say vortex. What we're talking about is actually double winding the water. So there's a left and right vortex winding around like a braid, right? And you can make different braids in different situations. You can make double braids, you can make triple braids, these types of things.
Is that kind of the snakes around the DNA strand is kind of the vortex?
Yeah. So when you see the medical caduceus symbol, that's kind of what those is. The male female energies winding together in a common direction.
And our DNA is
correct.
Vortexing.
Yeah, which is more of a toroid. They now know it's a circular, so that's a braid, like a wreath around in a circle, so it reloops itself. So it's
like
what you call it, a toroid.
Okay.
So at any rate, that's what we're doing to the water. And when that's going on, you get what we call electromagnetic field cancellation, meaning electromagnetics are manifests of the ether. So, an atom is an electromagnetic standing wave. So everything's a vibration, like you said. It's just such a dense, high frequency one that it behaves as a solid. So when we cancel that stuff out, guy by the name of Ken Shoulders recorded those type of discharges. That's what Nikola Tesla was doing with his impulse discharges, is monopoling the male female into one direction. So it's more like a triangle that came to a point of energy, and that's where the ether would concentrate on the implosion. So Victor Schauberger was working with water implosion. So our devices implode, and when they implode, they more or less wind around each other, and that brings in the ether. And then the environment decides what that raw ether energy is going to transform into. And water leans towards promoting life, integrating rather than disintegrating. Water will help high quality disintegration, right? The plant cycle, like what we call the cationic seeding side of growing cannabis, right? So when we go to fruit, we have a different recipe, a cationic recipe that we feed the plants, and the water would support that, right? So you need less cationic switch when the plant's in good communication. And you talked about silicon. If you look at Walter Russell's chart, carbon is the octave we're in, and it's an octave of water, of the combination of the H2O situation, which is a group form. And then higher form carbon is like a buckyball or C60. Like there's not just carbon, there's coal, there's diamonds, there's C60.
I was
there's
actually taking
shungite.
Purple Power C60.
Nice.
It's pretty powerful, I'll admit.
Yeah, and then like what happens is if you drink like the structured water, especially if that water is brewed or born out of shungite, which is a C60 form, right? It resonates with the C60 you're taking in your body, and then you just don't need to take as much, and it's more effective. So less is more, right? Less is like, seek like, and less is more. That's the whole entire motto of the future. Don't use consumable technologies if you don't have to. That's like what I'm really proud of, is we're representation of a water improver that doesn't get consumed. And now we're looking at a harmony, right? Silicon is an octave of carbon. And so we're pairing musical octaves together. Everybody who knows in music, like, you're pretty safe if you play octaves. They always sound good together. And then how do we build these harmonies that are more discrete? Like, how do we build higher quality terpenes? Those are like more discrete type music melodies, key codes, more complex rhythms, if you will, things like that. So you kind of can look at water as the orchestrator, not the instrument, not the player of the instrument, but the orchestrator of all the players and all the instruments. And it prefers to massage things rather than beat on things to get them to change.
Well, water is definitely the universal element to our world, and us and all these living beings. Now, you talk about these cultures that use water, the Mayans, the Egyptians. I'm thinking of the cenotes in Southern America and how they built many different, water systems into the lands. I would imagine that they had some type of understanding on how to collect energy if they put these cenotes in a certain pattern. And I did find an article in that many ancient cultures were living on top of water on islands. They man-made islands above these, man-made lakes and stuff. So they had houses. They knew about the energy. And bringing it forward now to us, I appreciate what's going on. I'm huge on into healing our body through these natural methods, and I always promote this thing on my my channel. And being that I am in an area in Pacific Northwest where there's a lot of rivers, I happen to be by a river that's been highly contaminated by this Operation Green Run. Hanford situation. Manhattan was building one of their test bombs, and one of the sites where they're building the test bombs, right? So they left a lot of radiation, a lot of debris, a lot of crap in our rivers. Actually, just recently, one of the lakes, I think, or one of the small rivers, just somewhere in the local, like 30 minutes away, I know for a fact they said, hey, you guys can't go in there, it's causing poison, it's poisonous, it's causing cancers, it's doing all this crap. And to see that it's just, we can have it as simple as what you offer, just putting it in your household, or even these mineralization drops. What can you speak about these mineralization drops?
Okay, so it's kind of interesting you mentioned the like the nuclear contamination, And so, and we talk about this is always important, I think, to underlie all this so people can have an understanding. You learn this in nuclear power and nuclear physics. The atoms are not static. They move around and change form all the time. So, lead moves to gold and this moves to that. And that happens in nature, right? Through living systems, through bacteria, so in all this, if we accelerate or encourage transformation, we can change the characteristic behavior of these atoms, of these radioactive isotopes and things. And I don't know if George talked about that with the Brown's gas, but the water plasma is what I call the Brown's gas, is capable of accelerating the decay and remediation without radiation of nuclear power. It needs developed. I'm not saying it's going to come out anytime soon, but there's evidence of that. There's evidence of water being able to do that. So the mineral, right? The mineral, I'll explain the full life cycle of water and how, like, the biggest life cycle. So the water evaporates from the ocean, moves over to the mountain, rains, and that's your top-down feed. And then the water comes up from the springs. So the two meet together, like coming together from above and from below. And then they wind back down to the ocean in the end. And out of the ocean floors is volcanic plumes all over the place. And they secrete a mineral. And the mineral we sell is the mineral that comes off the ocean floor. And the whole thing was discovered out of these volcanic plumes. So it's a volcanic mineral. And the mineral originated in Japan. And it was somewhat discovered on accident after they couldn't find a way to find something to remediate the nuclear waste from the bombs we dropped on them in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And so this original base mineral is been around a long time and is very well understood what it's capable of. And more or less, it was considered to be fairly effective at remediating and binding radioactive materials. That's not what we use it for. We use it to help purify the body and help make a medicine water like Victor Schauberger talked about. But that is the origin of it. And so, like, we have lab reports on our site, and it is way better at filters. And what it does, it's a sulfur-based mineral group, so it's got all your micronutrients, like kind of what you need to feed the soil and plants. And it's got a sulfur group base, and then it's got your macros like calcium, magnesium, and iron. And so what it seems to do is support your mitochondria and get across the cell wall really fast. So Jerry Tennant talks about that if you don't have the right form of sulfur, you can't get these nutrients into your cells. And Jerry Tennant is one of the doctors that use the body electric and talk about what cancer really is. How there's no difference between cancer and a human pregnancy in the beginning. It's non-eukaryotic cells. It's cells without nucleus. That's not the problem. There's a bigger problem, that has to do with electrical voltage in the body. That electrical voltage is regulated first by the water and second by the minerals your body takes. And your liver stores those minerals and can assemble whatever you want. If you don't have the minerals, the vitamins don't work. You take vitamin C and D all day long. If you don't have the minerals, they're not going to be absorbed by your body. And so you'll become mineral deficient while you're full of minerals. You'll starve to death while you're full of nutrients. Animals, like if you feed a deer corn, they'll starve to death with their bellies full of corn because they don't have the minerals to digest that corn as a ruminant. So the artificial corn or synthetic corn will basically kill animals if that's all they start eating, right? So it's kind of a similar thing here, as water sets up that foundation for detoxification of the blood. That's what you see in the lab studies, is that it'll grab pharmaceuticals, it'll grab pesticides, and we're talking hundreds of them that we tested, not just like one or two. It'll kill so-called viruses, which are just screwed up proteins. Viruses don't really exist. It's just malformed proteins. You'll get rid of a lot of bacteria and protozoa with it. We can't test everything, but it looks like this concoction is, medicine water. It's water that'll help you heal. And without saying any specifics, I've seen it happen personally in a very short period of time. But I'm not going to say that every person is like that. That everybody is different. Everybody has a different journey, but it is one powerful tool to use mineral water as medicine and use water as medicine, but you can't abuse medicine. That's what medicine means, is you don't take medicine every day, all day long, right? Use medicine when you need it. And then there's other forms of the mineral we make that are more for daily supplement. So, I wanted to really study Victor Schauberger, Tesla, Walter Russell, and John Keeley, and combine those four guys into our technology. And that's who I've studied. Walter Russell kind of on top too. Took all their principles because they knew way more than I did. And I wanted to bring all their hard work. And Tesla and Schauberger got screwed like no tomorrow. Walter Russell kind of got screwed doing transmutation by some of these, entities. Let's just say these entities that don't want to empower human beings, that want, there's a lot of evidence in history that the human being was made to become a better slave, in the whole Anunnaki story, right? Whether it's true or not, who cares? It's a story. But I'll 100% agree that the system is designed to make you into slave. I mean, look at it. You go from one box to another box and drive and pollute the planet and get in a box and go up to a bunch of other boxes and come back down the boxes and get back in the boxes. And we're just disconnected from nature, right? And we just lose it. We lose everything when we do that. And water is one of the best ways we can ground back into it. So that's the minerals. That's the point of the minerals. So let me say this too. If you're out in the middle of nowhere and you take the regular, we have a Mimbiotics, we call it mineral biotics, meaning if you study Beisham's work, he says every mineral comes with a microzyma, which tells the body that consumes that mineral how to use that mineral. It's like the ambassador. So he called them microzyma. Instead, the academic system let Pasteur plagiarize Beisham's work, and they killed terrain theory. Beisham proved terrain theory, and then they switched to germism through Pasteur, and this was in 1800. And that's when vaccines were first starting to come out. So Beisham was also contrary to vaccines because he was like, who the hell would want to put a diseased, putrefied animal tissue into a human body? And the first ones were so bad that the doctors who studied them, like they test, I think 40 sheep, they knew it was, they said, this is stupid, but we'll test it on sheep just to show how dumb it is. And 39 out of the 40 sheep died within 2 weeks with the first vaccine tests that were proposed, which were from putrefied animal tissue, which draws in microbes that are designed to tear down flesh. It's what happens when a tree dies. Fungus comes in and eats the tree. So like that's what happens in your body when you get old and hit the end of your cycle. Tissue does not form correctly, so you breathe in spores that eat it up. So at any rate, flip back to the mineral. The water more or less can be purified, and it can be used to help clean up waterways and lakes with other methods. And we got involved with indigenous tribes who had bad water supplies. And this, all you got to do basically is put the mineral water in the tank and wait 24 hours, and this laboratory array of over hundreds of toxins turn out to be a orange ash in the bottom, and then you just open a valve on the bottom of the tank, dump that out, feed that to your soil because the microbes will eat that up and transform it and turn it into plant food. And then there's your detoxification process of that water before it goes into your body. So you're kind of hitting it in both directions, and you start to see a synergy, right? It's not silicon or carbon. It's hydrogen, water, carbon, silicon in musical synergy. It's clean the body, clean the water in your body. You clean the water going out of your body, right? That goes back to the environment and adds to it. Well, once we hit critical mass, the very act of doing this, and I'm not partial to saying our technology is the best. When you look into this, there's a handful of people doing it worldwide, and you know, the male raw logical science wants to call bullshit on it. But now the science is plenty good enough for all this that, hey, look at how the earth does it. Victor Schauberger, understand and copy nature. Society is no more intelligent than its understanding of nature. And he's kind of my main guy, where when I fell in love with water, like the power and the electricity was Tesla for me. But Schauberger was kind of that unification to the water with Tesla, because I used to play around with a lot of magnetic and electric circuits and free energy stuff before I really got consumed into the water is the ultimate, you know, energy regulator. So yeah, the minerals are vibes that go to work physically and do wonderful things for the body. But again, they're more like medicine, so you don't want to abuse them. You know, there's water you drink every day, and then there's medicine water.
The mineral, I was looking at it, and I could just imagine. See, I'm huge on holistic health as you are, and a lot of the things you're hitting on definitely struck me as the same things that I've been talking about. See, when you talk about how bad water and this bad energy will act as like the fungal in your body, and you'll like start destroying your systems. I'm automatically thinking of these GMOs that are in our food, these completely bizarre chemicals that are in all of our products, our hair products, our skin products, and it's just like creating this. I would imagine this network inside of our body that's like just symbiotically destroying and decaying, putting us in a static. I would also imagine that, you know, I'm huge on the neural network and our brain. We have like 3 trillion nerves in our brain, and how neuroplasticity is formed over time, and what these chemicals are doing. You know, you talk about water itself, and I'm looking at GMOs, and now you add water. I'm like, oh, this is a whole nother aspect. Like this is the other 50% I've been missing. I'm like, oh, I've been looking at chemicals. I'm like, it kind of just doesn't make sense that chemicals are the only thing messing things up. But now you and George have really structured me on water. Structured water, really, to see that this is the other aspect of our health that we must maintain. You know, clean water, where we have strengthened cells, cells that are vibrating, cells that are energetic, always doing their job. Yeah, doing their job. And I'm sure in some holistic and ethereal sense, spiritual sense, when I start getting back out there in nature and I start drinking natural water and healthier water, I almost feel like my spirit gets in touch with the world spirit and gets some memory, some ancestral memories, unlocks some ancient DNA, some mitochondria, some just something inside of us that's tapping into a whole nother level. I understand that if we vibrate at a high enough frequency, yes, we can access different dimensions, as you mentioned earlier, the Akashic realm. And I think that's what clean water actually does. I actually fully believe that in the ancient times, some of this holy water that they mentioned was blessed water, very high, very clean water. I know that holy water from the biblical times actually stems from certain rivers that were very alkaline. I'm guessing the water was very cleansed. It had perfect structure. And you know, we're now in a time where a lot of us are looking at ourselves and wondering what's wrong with the world, and it's really water. I mean, there's a little bit of a tangent right there, but I mean,
no, you're talking about a foundation we've all stepped over. I mean, when I ran into the emphatic engineering scientific side of it, where I was like, holy shit, water's alive, it's intelligent, it has a program in it. And how did I not know this before? Like, it's kind of, if there's no water, nothing grows. And how does it know how to tell things to grow? And it's like, wow. Like, this is the simple thing that everybody just walks right over, takes it for granted, and calls it a chemical, right? And instead, it's kind of like the divine mother that gives birth to everything.
is that how when we drink water, like our neural network, clean water, the water that you're promoting, energetic water, it unlocks our neural network. And so, yes, it gets us back in with the divine. Definitely.
And it's a cool journey. We don't really know what it's like because it's not what any of us grew up with, right? I'm 48. It's 1974. That was like the peak of poison in rivers and whatnot. I didn't grow up, but I had this connection to nature. I grew up on a river, and everybody's like, "Don't go in that river; it's poisonous." And I went in the river anyways. I fished and watched the river try and heal itself, and watched the river struggle and played in it, and it was good to me. Like I was like, I don't care what you say. I love
I mean,
being
I'm sure
around
you
this
healed
stuff.
the water.
Hmm?
I bet you healed the water.
But I think interacting with it in that way is part of that.
Well,
Not being
I
afraid.
actually have seen studies and reports on how people have meditated and chanted on dirty water and cleansed it.
Mhm.
So I actually have studied and put together an article in one of my previous videos, which I labeled "The Miracle in the Gulf of Mexico," and this was earlier in 2000s, where when the BP oil spill was big, right, in the Gulf of Mexico. Well, they
Right.
were trying all of these ways to clean it up, and eventually they settled to hire a man in Vancouver, Canada, and he brought down a frequency machine and he played the Fibonacci sequence. The perfect the harmonies. 432. He was playing different.
Music.
Yeah, well, he
Yeah.
was playing 432 hertz actually, right, which is a perfect harmony. One of the perfect harmonies, one of the natural harmonies, symbiotic with our body that heals and with nature. So he healed the water through the frequency. It was actually one of the most fascinating stories I ever heard. And then I started, getting more and more into this. And,
Yeah,
I don't know if you ever heard about
nature
that.
always, heal herself pretty good, and then we come along and we either get in the way of that or we encourage that. And that's what we're learning now is how to encourage the natural processes to accelerate and stop the negative inputs that are causing, the water, basically the blood of the earth, to hold this stress pattern, which shows up as right angles when we look at it under the microscope. And living water looks like vegetation or crystals or things you would see in nature. Actually, it looks like you're photographing nature from a helicopter with like a UV filter. That's what it looks like when you look at water structure. So water has character like DNA, like human beings. It's unique to itself all over the world. So we're just starting to catalog that and understand a little bit about how that works. And Veda Austin's doing really good work as far as like making a relationship with water. And she's actually seeing there's a language forming in water, meaning she can communicate to the water and get answers from the water that mean something. And they're repetitive. So if it happened once, it wouldn't mean anything. But she can basically say something to the water and get a articulate response back out of the water. And now she's kind of starting to form sentences. So that work is absolutely amazing. Amazing woman. And she's really taken the time to slow down and get down in it and build this relationship with water. And that's what I call the second factor. You can take like our technology and our minerals and do a lot with it, but really it's your relationship with the water and all you can do with it that you'll develop for the rest of your life that'll determine what the limits are or aren't. And it's pretty crazy what water can do and what you can do. And when you pair those two together as a living relationship, it gets nutso. It gets to the point where things happen that are completely unexplainable, like similar to like, you can heal bodies of water. You can
You mentioned
change
that, and
things
I was
quickly.
just thinking of a nearby lake here in Washington State. It's actually the only known world's volcanic lake inside of the surface of the world, right? The water gets boiled through a pressure tube that comes from the inside of the world. So it's like it's very pristine water. It's called Soap Lake. It's heals you. It's been known for a long time, and because of the content, the mineral content inside of it, you get healed. People go there and it's a lighter feeling of water. So you kind of just feel probably etherically high as well, I would imagine. And you get healed because of the remineralization in this water. I mean, I'm drinking this Arrowhead, and that's my best attempt at this natural minerals. But I mean, I'm sure
It's okay.
Yeah.
When
sure
I'm
you
out
could
and
probably
about, I'll grab Arrowhead, but that's where we take the portable and kind of bring it back to spring like a little bit, not worry about the little contaminants and the bottled water and the plastics in there. That's just all fear campaign, right? I'm not saying there's not pathological negatives there, but there will always be people selling a fear atom or a fear molecule that they will tell you is the reason that you're not a man anymore, is because you're drinking plastic now. So you're not a man anymore. That's a program, man. Don't listen to any of that crap. It doesn't have anything to do with anything. And when you talk about the healing waters, I call it like water memory inertia, or water inertia memory, however you want to look at it. That like healing places, like if you took all the water out of there and put a different water in there, there would be an inertia of the ether that would transfer to the new water because of how long water has been condensing ether there. So it's kind of weird when you think about it, but when you study like life force energy, it's kind of like shadow limbs. Like, you can chop off a finger and then take a picture and the finger will still be there for quite a while, like under the natural, scans, like the biofield scans, if you will. So yeah, it's cool stuff. I've had my own experiences with the healing water. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, we'll see how true this is, because people oversell everything. And I got stood corrected pretty hardcore with a bum ankle in Oregon. And I went up to some mineral pools in Glide, Oregon, and really cool place where there's like little bowls that trickle down the side of a mountain into a river. And I went in there for about 7 minutes and had a really torn up ankle from falling out of a tree. And I could barely walk, and it was swollen like all hell. And I walked down the mountain with very little pain. And an hour later, it was like gone. It was just slightly uncomfortable and stiff, where it was like totally sprained prior. So, that was my experience with, healing water. You absorb the minerals, all that stuff. But I mean, I actually like had a walloped ankle that was bruised, swollen, couldn't even fit in my shoe, and got home on the airplane the next day with a perfectly fine ankle after being in that water for 7 minutes. And I've sprained my ankle before. Like it takes a long time to heal normally. So, different ways of viewing things, and you got to be open to it too, right? That's what I tell people. Your control. You don't need belief, but if you have disbelief, it'll block you from the gifts that the universe has to give to you. You don't have to believe in it. Like animals don't believe in anything. They just sense things, and they receive the gifts from nature, no problem. So they do really good on structured water. Some people don't really get much from structured water because they're busy not wanting to believe it. That's where their intention's going. So the water reflects that and goes, okay, I'll just be normal water for you. It's kind of my take on it. It's reflective, Even then, you see physiological changes. So most people will call me that are disbelievers after about 2 weeks and go, you know what I saw? You know how I know it works? And I'm like, go ahead, tell me. And it's always something. Like the horses would only drink that water. My dogs would only drink that water. My cats would only drink that water. I almost had a heart attack from my coffee enema when I used structured water. All sorts of different things, because, it's an amplifier. So less is more, like seek like. You're a water sack. We live on a water sack. We're floating in a giant water universe. Like seek like. Less is more.
And
That's the
I would
program.
I would imagine now with this remineralization through your technology that our chakras would be resonating if there's energy centers and inside of our body, like the ancients believed. Um, your technology would literally be amplifying our spirituality within. Now we can hit it back on
Yeah,
spirituality.
we tend not to understand it exactly because the soul body has to work through its learning and experience. But you do see changes, and those chakras um, are verifiable in electrical engineering terms as voltage centers. So they're not theory. You can actually measure that with voltmeters through your body. I mean, it does. I mean, it's not hard to measure. You can see the different vibrations at different places and the concentrations of them, and they move around a little bit. They're not static, and they seem to line up and resonate right when they're along the spine, and then that the spine aligns. It's kind of all goes together. It's not really causal. It's like there is a harmony playing now, or there's a harmony playing now, but there's some disharmony in the equation. We got somebody who doesn't know when and how to play the instrument, right? An organ, because the organ ain't fed right, doesn't have the right information, right?
Yeah, you got to have organic for the organs.
There you go. I like that. Like seek like.
Honestly, so tapping into the spirituality, is that something you guys promote? You guys promote like a little bit of holistic and well-being too, right?
Yeah,
Me,
for
for me,
sure. Like environmentally towards the planet and with the people. So on a lot of my webinars, I do like webinars with slides, more like teaching webinars. And I move through a series, but I got Ayurvedic is kind of my favorite. So Dr. Raman Gokal, he's like super good with Ayurvedic teaching. And so I have him on sometimes and talk about that. And I like try and be a bridge builder between like more engineering medical world that I think is totally lost right now, and help get them across the bridge, and then work with like the Ayurvedic spiritual people and help them kind of meet in the middle and like kind of referee that battle a little bit. You know what I mean? If it's going to be one and say, okay, we're not ready for this, and try and cross correlate the language. Like, look, what you're saying is the same. It's just you're not applying it correctly. They know how to apply it over there. Why don't you listen to them? And Raman Gokal is really good because he was a nephrologist. He was a conventional doctor, but highly trained in the Ayurvedic side of things, right? And so when he retired, he wanted to bridge those two together, and he used our technology. He actually got involved in doing a potential kidney trial in Manchester University in England for us, where they were like the RO water that we're putting back into the nephrology ward, during, that process of dialysis. He said it is not good. So we need to change that water to limit. And we had a guy working for us for a while that had failing kidneys. And what he said is it just made the quality of his life so much better because of the cramps and the misery that would go on when you change your body's water out, right? Because that's a painful process. Like that's a transformation that's weird because you're switching not all, but a lot of the blood water body out. And that new water coming in has to learn the new body. So that's like a process that's not learning all of that. Like that doesn't happen in water in like an hour. There's so much going on that we don't know about. It takes water like hours to days to weeks to really learn its home properly. And I've watched that happen. It needs rest like a human being. So if you don't get rest, the water in your body don't get rest, and it doesn't behave right. And that's a fact I could repeat scientifically over and over and over again when I was doing the water plasma development. That's part of the scale problem that nobody talked about in the HHO and Brown's gas community, that you cannot just hammer on water all day long with power. It gets tired and starts to it transforms and becomes aggressive. rather than its normal property.
So with that, now would we speculate that some of these damaged water in our tap water systems and our river water systems are actually tired, which
Yeah.
might actually would be inside of the society and animals and humans, whatever, and make them tired automatically, make people just stagnant, lowered, just constantly like
You're
messing with their
correct.
circadian rhythm.
Yeah, totally correct. I mean, if you look at your body, it's the same as a river system. Look at your veins, look at your lungs. The lungs look like tree roots. I can show people a picture of lungs in a tree root system and they can't tell the difference. I'll go, which one's the tree and which one's the lungs? And they can't tell the difference, right? It's 50-50. They have to guess at it. And I'm like, nope, that's the lungs, not a tree, And so you see the same thing. So what happens is you're putting tired water in a tired body that doesn't structure water as well. You get constricted capillary flow first. You get a malfunctioning nervous system. You get all these things that inhibit your body as a structuring device. And so that's the whole idea, right? But tired water and a tired body, the synergy of like seek like is going the wrong way. So, and I'm not saying you can just drink living water or structured water and your unstructured, unhealthy body will be like, bing, I'm back to normal. But it will start helping you go there. And it's a gradual change, right? Sudden change is this like the damaging thing. So if you it's like if you tear down a dam overnight by blowing it up, it'll screw up the last 50 years of that nature adapting to that dam, right? So when you tear down a dam, you tear it down slowly and introduce a little bit more water every day. That's how you work with nature, right? Nature worked its ass off to fix the problems of the dam for the last 50 years, and it did the best it could do, given the conditions of there being a dam. Well, when you get sick, that's precisely what happens to the electrical condition in your body. You dam up the relationship between your equators, between your input, your liver, and the enzymes to put it on the human frequency, and then your exhaust going out the body, right? And ironically, it starts with being too alkaline. You can't digest stuff correctly. So the whole alkaline water thing is kind of incorrect in the principle sense, because it's not the alkalinity that makes a difference. It's the quality of the minerals that make the alkalinity. And if the alkalinity is too much, you're going to contribute to slowing down your body system. But also, if that water's alive, it has another pole inside of it. That's what Gerald Pollack, kind of talks about with the easy water. But there's two poles in the water, and they both have roles and functions that need to be maintained. There's actually 4 poles in the water, but I won't go into that.
We can go in deeper in all these subjects on another day. Honestly, we can have a second podcast, man. I'm sure we could talk for days.
Oh yeah. I could go into spin-offs of this that is kind of right up your alley of what you really have gotten into. We don't need to, I'm first about like sharing the joy of life and all there is to discover. And unfortunately, to understand what's happening today, you kind of have to look at a history. You have to throw away the history that's kind of bullshit, superficial, fluff. Like, why do I care when the war was, when all there ever was wars? And how come there's always wars? And how the hell do people line up and stand in a field and shoot at each other? That's like dumb as hell. Like, what human being would stand in an open field across and shoot each other? Like, they're like, oh, and we invented guerrilla warfare. And like, invented guerrilla warfare. That's what somebody must have been shooting them people if they didn't stand there. That's what I think. You know what I mean? Who are those people, and what's that history? And that's kind of an ugly history to go into. But the reality is, if you just focus on the beautiful things, which you can kind of see in nature pretty easy if you're not afraid of it, and you got to get over that fear of nature. I used to be a hunting and fishing guide, and I used to take people out in the woods where there was mountain lions and bears, and they would be scared shitless that, a mountain lion was going to come attack them. And I normally don't carry a gun in the, in the woods, but I'd have to carry a sidearm with certain people. And they said, why are you carrying a sidearm? Because they're afraid, right? And I said, because you're afraid of the lion, and the lion can sense your fear. If you weren't afraid, I wouldn't worry a bit about that lion attacking you, but it ain't going to attack me, because I've fished in this canyon 50 times and I've had mountain lion tracks on my own footprints walking out, right in the dark, 1,000 feet down in a canyon, and they never once even posed anything but a threat. They're not really like that unless you're afraid. And so you move into nature without fear. Nature starts working with you. Like bugs will attack you in nature for the first couple days until you get over your fear and get over the fact you can't do anything about it. And then you're like, man, the bugs ain't bothering me. One, because you're not mentally feeding it. And two, because the water and your liver and your blood start working together to produce pesticides, because you're starting to get healthy again. And so the body makes its own pesticides, just like plants make their own pesticides, like terpenes, right?
Yeah, we definitely have our own biomechanical system that it works as self defense mechanisms. It's pretty fascinating.
Just
I
trust in nature.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to take a quick break? We can go
Yeah.
ahead and take a quick break. All right, man. I'm gonna go ahead and run some videos.
All right, how long?
I don't know, maybe like 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Okay, cool. See you in 5.
Gonna go far, that's what we on the run for, go hard. Sipping gin while we sitting, spitting those bars. Getting rich, got a vision, get the show cards. Lot of money laying around cause we go hard, always go hard. Spitting fire, see the sonar, hope they resonate with the vibe. Feel like Mozart, really I'm alive in my soul, feel like Mozart. That's what hoes are, too explosive so I show art. Yeah, I make art, sad to see people with no heart. I work to replace all of the negative, I go far with it. I'ma show all of these bitches, no complaining if you with it. Don't you dream, you see the vision, need my energy, the mission. Really take all my precision. Every single day I picture where I'll feed the day we get it. Feed the brothers, feed the fam. I don't really give a damn. I don't wanna get famous, I wanna lend a hand. Give the cash and rubber bands to the people always standing on my side, always down the ride. Say I planned it, I'm the guy, life is supersized on the planet. In my mind, I don't gotta try, I already have it. I'll be doing damage, I was born a savage. In my mind, I already died, living lavish. Heaven is a state of mind, be glad if you have it. Living in a simulation, be patient to grab it. Universe will bring it to you if you ain't an average. If you live an average, then Satan's bound to manage your life. I'm just trying to tell you, if you gonna roll the dice, gamble in your life instead of living precise. I ain't perfect, but I'm gonna earn it. No, it don't concern anybody but my person. Lesson that I learned is that people are gonna burn. Anything you do, they gonna pay the price. Nothing nice come in life for the dipshits. They just wish shit, never gonna manifest it. Never catch me resting, short-term blessings. I just want my brain to work so I can write my next hit. Ignite the blessings, manifest my life, never question a moment in my life. I be knowing that it's meant to be, this my destiny. All the rest of my life really history. The day that I'm finally gone, they'll be missing me. Your position be the reason that I'm gone. 200 songs done, I've been on the run. I ride a wave, make a way, I'm the one. I stay the same, but I'm changing a ton. Rearranging my brain for the gains through the sun. I've been absorbing the light, I could say that I won. At least I'm conscious of what I'm doing, praying a ton. Relay all the information, staying patient with the shit. I write a hit just to get through all this shit. I ain't a bitch, so I'll make it. I ain't dealing with the prick, I'm finna take over the game. Really, I'm getting in, I'm really glad that you're here to witness it. I'm about to fix entire rap game. You could call it magic, like a trick. Classic with the way I spit it. It be clapping when it hits. I be snapping on this shit. I've been rapping, feeling lit. I'm not new. What I do, I've been at it for a minute, pursuing doing the damage new. I would do everything that I said I would do. I gotta have it, so goddamn it, I'ma be everything I plan to be. Glad to see money coming my way, believe I'll achieve anything I put my mind to, or at least I try to. I'm avoiding my doom, manifesting my room. Meditate to ease the flow. Third eye open, see the golden energy. It can enter me, get me to feeling full. Forget my enemies, dead to me, yeah, I proceed to go to a new dimension. Gotta mention it's inside our soul. Go inside, fuck the outside. Never tell lies, show pride for belief. Gotta keep the range wide, so instead I just write another hit. Getting fried, rolling up, smoke another blunt for the good times. Good times, bad times makes for the good rhymes. So it never matters, I just learned, no I can't hide. Thank God for every second was birthed with the mind of an ancient soul who's just waiting for the next sign. I'm always watching, vision like a hawk, have 'em flocking. When I drop it, I'm talking, have 'em knocking. The knowledge that I'm dropping, I'm coming out the noggin, I'm logged in. That's the intuition, nothing wrong with doing what you feel is right. Everybody got this. Usually feel it in the night when I'm dropping knowledge. I never even needed any college. Abolish people telling people what they want. I do not wish control over anybody. Do it for the profit. That's the reason that they push it. Do it from the cockpit. Cause they got the money, want the money on the mob shit. On the mob shit. But I know they ain't gon' make it. Shit is poppin'. At the end of time, new age topics. Revolutionary crusade cross. Here we go to a new space. Yeah, we enter in a new place. Louis V on my shoelace, rolling with the blue face. Yeah, I'm wondering what you chase. Just another dude caught up in the rat race. Moving my pace, lot of people looking at me sideways. I chase future preparations, gotta go through my phase till I feel ready to rearrange it. Happen on a daily basis, tripping oasis. When so many people that I can't see through their faces and touch, so I'm reading minds, feel like I'm evasive, persuasive. Cause I feel the vibe, manipulation, I'm patient. Yeah, I feel the vibe, then work to change it. Manifestation, blessings is what I'm chasing. Quantum physics, I'm about to take the time and rearrange it. I play with reality, can't feel like I'm basic. Most people shut it down, don't wanna embrace it. Replacing knowledge.
Right, all right, we are back. Hey, man. So, all right, it's been about like an hour long. Hey, you got anything more that you really want to share in this discussion? I think that maybe if you want to wrap it up, I think we can go ahead and schedule for another day and then really get into another deep dive. Honestly,
Yeah, man. You familiar with Royal Raymond Rife?
no, why? Who was that?
Check that out a little bit and see if you like that topic. He's the guy who invented a microscope back in the 30s, and this was all over the San Diego newspapers. And he got cancer under the microscope and like nailed it down. The language wasn't right, but he nailed it down. And then he was the guy who first started all the frequency machines. So you hear about all these frequency healing machines and machines that can kill cancer. He's the guy who did that. And my business partner with Natural Action, one of them, more or less kept the whole history of that. So he had a private library. So I had access to like all these books that have been scrubbed from history. And so I'm really privileged, I'm really grateful to share because I believe it's a gift, not me being smart. And a lot of people are like, oh, this guy's smart. And I'm like, no, I was just given a lot of gifts and I'm motivated to share those gifts,
Yeah,
And
same
I really
here.
dig your show, man. Like the production is great. Like the broadness of what you go into is awesome. It's so good to see younger people like not afraid to go into the fringe and, like UFO craft design and how the military has done it. I'm into that too. Like what the B-2 bomber really is. And, I'm kind of light buddies with Paul Laviolette, who's like the greatest unified physics model to date. And nobody even knows who he is or what. Everybody talks about Einstein and that doesn't get anybody
let's go ahead and run by these three topics. You mentioned the B bomber, so let's start with that. Then we'll switch over to the the other two topics that you had mentioned.
Yeah, we could do it. We could do it another time if you want. I'm just throwing stuff out there to say, like, outside of Natural Action, which is my home, my dedication, my contribution to practicality and spirituality in the manifest, where we share it. And outside of that, I'm into how this all connects together for the human conscious collectiveness. Like I was watching your commercial, and there's a specific craft design. So that UFO bouncing up and down is a Palladian craft, and that's a Billy Myers stories, who was a sheep farmer. And they gave him information that he gave to NASA, and so the question was, Billy Myers was like, well, I'm a sheep farmer. Why are you guys communicating with me? And they were like, because when you go back to NASA, they're going to know that you would have never had this knowledge because you were a sheep farmer your whole life. And that craft is powered by water plasma in that story. So anti-gravity craft in more advanced civilization in the story, I didn't see this personally, so I'm not going to say it's my fact or my reality, but I will tell you the story has information in it that wouldn't be able to be possible if there wasn't some truth in the story, significant truth. And I can tell you from personal experience and my own personal interests in the Air Force and the military, right? I was a nuclear Navy guy. And I went to the nuclear Navy to learn about the hot rock, how you can power a city with something the size of a softball for 20 years. I'm like, I want to learn about this. I don't want to go to college and sit there and learn about, Newtonian physics and, where they say the apple falls out of the tree and there's the story. And like Victor Schauberger said, how'd the apple get up there to begin with? That's what we want to study. The levitative growth is what we want to study. And so water, Hawk and I, who is another study of water, called it levitative water because he basically said that water starts to take on an anti-gravity property. And then when you look at water as an electrical circuit and you look at the design of the B-2 bomber and high frequency dielectrics on the front wing and how you can see them flying in the sky at night and they glow. They glow because they ionize and they turn their engines off. They don't have a thermal signature anymore because they're running off of basically cold fusion, right? They take off with normal jets, so everybody sees that. And then once they get up there, they can shut the jets off and run, and they can fly a lot faster than 500 miles an hour. So, I'm a kid studying the X-15, and it goes Mach 5, Mach 4, and then 30 years later, we're building stuff that goes 500 miles an hour. Like, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. And then Paul Laviolette, like, articulately looks at Tesla's work, who also was rumored to understand electricity and anti-gravity very well. And then you look at the work of T.T. Brown out of Ohio, right? I'm in Ohio now by Wright-Patterson, kind of, and you see all this crazy stuff going around from water-powered vehicles to anti-gravity craft, and there's a lot of engineering science behind it. And I love talking about it. Some of it has been considered like, oh, you're going to get killed for talking about this stuff.
No,
like,
not anymore. Not these days.
Whatever.
I mean, unless you're like really stepping on some toes and really like, putting a nail in someone's back, typically they just leave alone a lot of the middle guys, and they really want to target the top of the top, that's really like creating mastermind game plans and how to overthrow the government with, yeah. So
right, disrupt, right?
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
not trying
like
to disrupt anything.
people like us, no, like that. Maybe like 10 years ago we were kind of shunned, but nowadays everything's out in the open. There's, we see a lot of FOIA release documents. The CIA is releasing documents. WikiLeaks is releasing documents. Just
the Boeing TR-3B was released. The Triangle craft that was released. So they have released that. Yes, we have anti-gravity craft. And Ben Rich, he basically, when he retired from Lockheed Martin, said we already have the powers to go to the stars and beyond. That was his closing speech when he retired. He told everybody. So it's like, why are we acting like this is all like some kind of woo-woo fictional land when in fact, like a third grader could make an anti-gravity craft out of tinfoil and wires if you give them a little Tesla coil to hook it up to. Like that should be our science fair project. That's what I want to share is like, the beauty of what you can learn and make the educational system exciting. Like I didn't like sitting in school for 8 hours a day learning about the same shit over and over again. I
knew
wanted to
school was
learn about
bullshit.
cool stuff,
Yeah, school was bullshit.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's Common Core. They literally bought the books to our schools, and they controlled all the program. It's programming, man. Literally programming.
Rand McNally.
Honestly, yeah, I was just listening into someone who was talking about how it's controlled by one of the big wigs that everyone talks about. I'm not really too sure who it is, but that doesn't surprise me. I'm blown away, man. There's a lot of stuff that we can talk about. Literally, I'm literally like my mind is going in a few directions.
Yeah. That's why I said
I would like
maybe
to go ahead and continue this on for another day. Shoot you out maybe like
with
a month
little
or
bit
so.
more focus because you
Well,
could pick something that you like, and then we can talk, and I can give you my personal experience in life with it, and I think we got a lot of similar interests. Whether it's Ormus and the work of Hudson and Joseph Farrell and the Nazi Bell and anti-gravity and the whole history. I always go way back in history and try and find the original documents, the original writings of the people who actually did the studies. And then I take it to the laboratory, and I often find in the laboratory that it's way easier to produce. It doesn't cost a lot, and it's not too hard to understand. But I do realize, like, to do it to scale in society, that's a long way off. A lot of people get up on the podium once they find out this stuff is real, and they're like, yeah, we should all have this tomorrow. And I'm kind of like, no, remember the dam? Take it down one brick at a time. That's the way it'll work good.
You definitely got to slow drip, people out, and like with the pineal gland, it's like you calcify it slowly. You can't just like burst someone open. They were gonna flip out, man.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Hey, and I wanted to show you
blast.
this too. We don't produce it anymore, but this is a portable travel structuring unit we made out of hemp.
Whoa.
And the reason why we don't produce it is because it's not quite ready, the whole supply chain. So we did a limited run, and instead of using, plastic, petroleum-based plastic, which is a good insulator and it's carbon-based, so it's not, and it's very stable. It's not as bad as people make it out to be, very durable. But in the future, we want to go, into hemp plastics. So I'm heavily involved in, I sit on the board of Nevada Industrial Hemp Fiber Corporation. I'm very aware of the graphene version coming from plants rather than petroleum fuels. Graphene will be an interesting substance of the future. That's very heavily vested in technological development now, but it hasn't really come out yet. And, I work with that living soil, living water side to try and make, the hemp industry actually go carbon forward. And like, how do you know you have living soil? You don't need nitrogen. You don't need fertilizer to grow because the nitrogen's in the air and the CO2 is converted into carbon in the soil. And when you see that happening, when nitrogen's being extracted from the air and when the carbon is being converted from a gas into a solid in the soil and it's growing and making living soil, there's your indicators. So there's no excuse for not understanding what all this is, even from an engineering scientific perspective, as well as the spiritual perspective. And I just wanted to throw that in there because I know you're into the hemp, and so am I, because it's one of them. I mean, the history of that too. With
I did want to say a long time ago in this conversation how spirituality and cannabis goes hand in hand, where the Vedic texts actually speak that cannabis and hemp is owned and has a spirit with guardian angels. And I look at history, look at things like what they depict some of these goddesses to be, and just some of the ideas that ancient history has been surrounding themselves with. And I understand how important cannabis is, and just having having cannabis products, that makes this all much better. I honestly love this, dude. I mean, I personally have all these ideas on what to do with cannabis. I'm like, for the last 10 years, I've been cycling through inventions in my head, and I kind of never didn't have the friends around me to back me up. That's why I kind of reached out to Podcast Network in the last three years. I've been really getting into forums and podcasting to groups, and trying to find my own group of friends, because this is where it's at. Like people like us communicating and, on, as you said, speaking outside of the normal box, right? And taking that step into speak a little bit on a higher level, unlock I guess our spirituality and vibrate at a higher frequency, but also do this on live. And it's been a journey. It's been one of the greatest things in my life. I'll go ahead and be honest. I've changed my whole life through this idea of connecting what we're doing, and it has to start with cannabis. Really, cannabis. 10 years ago I smoked cannabis, and I knew there was something different about it. I felt I was a little bit detached from spirit. Cannabis helped me find my spirit, and then I started searching outward into the world for all these different technologies, for all these different conversations, for the information, and I've definitely appreciate your words earlier when you said you appreciate this podcast, man. I honestly, I'm new. My production level, I think that's like middle ground, because like I'm literally coming in from like a little bit of music. I wasn't really too much into video editing and this media marketing, and so I'm over here kind of like making clothes, trying to do everything myself. I'm like a one-man team pretty much, and so hey, I
like
really
it, man.
appreciate this,
I
man.
appreciate it. Like you said, you know where you're at with it, and you're good at the progression, and you have a passion for it, and you love it, and you're sharing, your journey, like you said. Like, I felt like I was disconnected, and this is what connected me, and I appreciate that. And now you're getting into water, you're getting into, technologies, you're getting into soil and the whole system, our whole beautiful, diverse experience on earth here. And it's hard to appreciate what you don't appreciate, but you start to appreciate everything. That's kind of what the soul's looking for. You know what I mean? Your soul doesn't want to be pissed off and hating stuff. Nobody's does. And you certainly don't want to get stuck in that place. So you can tell by your energy that you're uplifted and enjoying what you're doing. And that inspires me. You know what I mean? It gets me out of that corporate natural action, manufacturing, engineering, our foundational duties, and into human to human, real, authentic conversation. And I don't mind breaking out of that, mold, and also seeing the benefit of having, that mold going on, and getting with people like you. And, if you got ideas and inventions, though right now it's just so screwed up economically, with new things coming in the hemp industry and supply chains. It's kind of slow and disorganized right now. But 5 years from now, probably there's a lot of network of people that, and a younger generation that is really kind of disinterested other than pushing buttons. So, I mean, this to me is a business relationship that goes spiritual on, hey man, if that's what you're interested, let's work together in the future and implement some of these creative ideas, and continue to grow this joy of sharing cool stuff, rather than the same old, don't look over here, you just get in your box and go to your box and get back in your box. And that's all there is to human life. And open up nature into the equation, and get with the groove. That's where it's going to go anyways, man. This movement ain't going to stop. It's a pole change. It's already headed there. You just either go with it and support it, or it kind of blows by you and you can watch it go by, or you can try and resist it, which is futile.
Or they get swept under the current if they really fight it and don't know how to do
all sorts.
And you mentioned the spirit. Look, I'll be honest. When you also mentioned Palladian, it's just like my whole life I've been having these encounters with the Pleiades. I look up every time I go outside. I see the Pleiades in my dreams. I hear about Pleiadians, ancestry and guidance. I understand that Pleiadians through the ancient times were some of the pre-generators, the creators. They were some of the first. And I think that I personally, have came here. I mean, I'm like all of us, we're all on a mission, man. And it's to help reinvigorate that spirit, that light. And when you talk about water and how modern water dims the light, I'm also saying the same thing. It's dimming the spiritual light. This is what it's about. We got to reinvigorate that light inside of people, reinvigorate the light around us in our communities, energize that water, that spirit, that light. It's all connected because you see a society, a town that's super connected on God or prayer or light, and they're living a nice place. They're living nice, like peaceful. But then you see these places that are very dirty. They probably, I'm just guessing, let's just say some places have dirty water. They're stuck on these lower mindsets. It's just a lack of light. As a society, it's a collective, and it just takes one person, one spark to change it. And two of us like this really changes it. It really makes it go. It really powers things up, man. This has been a blast. My friend Chad Smith wants to see that hemp unit. He runs a podcast.
Sure. It probably doesn't show up that good. Let me see. So that's a portable unit.
Let's go ahead and
you pour through this end.
I'm making full screen real quick. Let's see. Oh, wait, no.
Yeah. So you can kind of see the texture in there of the hemp plant. There's oils in there still. So yeah, we made about 200 of those about 3 years ago to kind of check where we would be for the future and what it's engineering development. So there's 200 of them out there, and people really like them. It's different. The water can tell that the hemp's in there. It's a carbon responder, right? Hemp is a lot of carbon, so it has a different quality to the water than the normal units. It still does the basic job, but it's a different characteristic. And I know we'll be heading back there. You know what I mean? That's what my goals are. I would like all our units to be manufactured from plants. I believe they'll perform better, and we just need to get the quality control and engineering standard up to par. And it's in the near future. I would say in the next 2 to 3 years, probably.
I do heavy cannabis research as part of my podcast, and so there's about to be a legalization of cannabis. Hemp was legalized in 2018. And right now, I think the market value for what's the income is in the billions, almost 10 billion or something like that. And so if all goes through within the next, I think 36 months, with Germany also legalizing cannabis and Japan also now talking about legalizing cannabis, I think the revolution for cannabis and hemp is about to explode. And yeah, I think it's a lot sooner, man.
It went to go, but it was a little bit cart before. I mean, it exploded in like 18, 19.
Oh yeah,
I was in Oregon farming in 16 and 17. We ran a research farm, and we did it with we wanted to get away from the ultra high THC and get back to natural strains. So I pulled seeds from 1974. And then when we grew those in living soil, it didn't stone you out or get you high. It made you feel good
spiritually
without being over high, and it felt like medicine.
And spiritually, it puts you in a really good place.
Yeah, I mean, I was working, and I wouldn't, and I didn't really smoke when we had the farm a whole lot. I didn't like the high THC stuff, but my farm guy, the guy who ran the farm from day to day, I was wiring electricity in the barn, and he goes, "Dude, I want you to try something." And it was a strain called Juicy Fruit, and we grew it in the lab, and it was in the lab under LEDs, under lab conditions, not natural conditions, not living soil. it had like 26% THC, and like I'd take a little puff of it and I didn't like it. And so he knew I wouldn't smoke it or even try any, because I would sample everything, kind of like wine, you know. I'm like, I want to see the quality of what we're growing. I would smell it, I'd smoke a little, you know, he'd convert a little bit. I'd check the whole process, you know. And so he kind of lied to me and told me it was a different strain. And he goes, just try it, damn it. And so, you know, I took a little puff off of the pipe as I was working in the barn. And I didn't even like notice anything, but I was dragging that day. I didn't feel good. And I remember about 30 minutes later, I had the music on and I was like, I am not stoned at all. I am not high at all. I just feel good. And I went and grabbed him and I said, what was that? Because that is what we should be growing. That is what the industry should be doing. Like, I don't feel like I need to smoke more of it. I'm not sitting there reefing on it, trying to get something out of it. I felt content, even, balanced, not over energetic, you know, not dragging. And he told me, he goes, yeah, dude, that was juicy fruit. And so grown, and that's where we found out the exact same gene and seed would grow entirely different and be in it. It didn't smell the same. It didn't feel the same. It didn't look the same. And he told me that's the same stuff, man. And then we had it analyzed. The terpene profile was totally different. And that's terrain theory dominating over germ theory or, you know, chemistry, right? So the DNA of the plant changed according to the environment to what it truly was supposed to be, where in the artificial sense, it was under stress, right? Because it was out of its natural environment. It wasn't shared in a common bed. It didn't have a fungal network to communicate. It was in pots, in a tent, underneath artificial lights, right? And the difference was just amazing. And that lesson is one for a human being, one for the planet, one for water. The environment sets up the total deal. So if we build high quality environments first with our minds and our intention and our attention, it's going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And that's what's cool about this, because that's what will inspire other people to do. And that's what we're inspiring each other to do. It just becomes contagious that, oh, there's like really cool things to look forward to in life besides getting a job, having kids, getting a home, getting a car, and having money. Like, that recipe is really boring and everybody gets miserable off of it.
One of those things that's really cool is imagining how I could create some live hash rosin with this structured water that you got going on. And how I can grow my cannabis. I'm just thinking about how big the buds would be, how powerful the rosin would be. Have you had anybody dabble in creating some hash rosin through your technology?
Yes and no. In passing, sometimes when I've gone to some of the cannabis and hemp trade shows, I've had some people come up to me and tell me that, you know, they've done some of this in their process. And, you know, I really didn't pay much attention to it other than them telling me, yeah, that's all this stuff makes a difference. And they were the kind of people who were doing everything. I have some people customers that I became personal friends with that really get into the alchemic spiritual side of growing their plants and that use our technology in different versions of it, like in all different ways, from foliar sprays to meditative chargings, like with our carbon gene, which is kind of like the, you know, the race car version of our technology and the alchemic version of what we do with this technology. And I like all facets, you know. For me, this became the challenge for me, is water is so connected to everything that I kind of lost focus trying to run the company and market, because I'm like, it's over here in agriculture, it's in industry. We can keep the pipes cleaner. We can help. It just went everywhere. Where couldn't this go became the question.
Water is in every venue of life.
Yeah, and where it kind of narrowed down to primarily is, like, for me, like, more human positive performance rather than trying to heal in sickness and focusing on that. It was like, let's turn this into like, let's uplift the human spirit, like you're talking about, and consequentially the human body that is driven by the soul, then the spirit, then the body, right? So that's where I'm at with it today from my personal perspective. Is we try and do more with athletes and people who are already healthy and people who have that healthy mindset, and rather than like focusing on like battling cancer all the time. And I want to get out of all that, but I think it is important to understand that all that is understandable. It's not the demon in the corner that nobody understands. So I think there's an important to understanding some of the biological pathology so you know what not to do, know how to recognize when you're doing the wrong things. And the same is true for the soil and the water and growing a plant as for a body. On the farm, I basically duplicated Dr. Kerry Reams' work, and he's probably the guy who was most genius. And he was a soil biology doctor, microbiologist, soil, biochem. And he found correlations in the chemistry through simple measurements between the soil and the human body. And there's some ridiculous similarities there. So when you take care of the soil in a certain simple chemistry way, and you know what that is, you're setting up what we call the wheelwork of nature, like Nikola Tesla said, where you get this momentum in it, where it starts to run itself. And we spent most of our time in our second year because the soil became alive. And I laughed because I started walking on the soil and I'm like, damn, Tim, I'm like, you don't need any instruments to tell when the soil's alive. I'm like, this is alive. Like from walking on it, he's like, it's totally different, ain't it? And I'm like, yeah, you know what it feels like? The humic floor in the giant cedars down the road on the Redwood Highway. That's what this soil feels like now. And when we ripped the plants out of the ground at the end of the year, every one of them had like 400 to 500 earthworms living underneath the root ball. Every plant. It was ridiculous. And we put like a cup of worms in there, and they populated that much in the living soil. And the second year, man, and this is what I said farming should be. The farmer shouldn't be worried about changing his soil and fixing machinery. He should be walking with his crops, talking to his plants every night, winding down, the evening. And that's what we used to do the second year. And I remember saying, I was like, dude, these plants are like alien. And when you were talking about the plants being angelic, the energy coming off of them was just so different than an artificial steroidal grow, which was the whole industry. We were in Southern Oregon and they're all buying all this shit, and the organic shit that used to be organic was getting bought out by like Scott's fertilizer. I mean, it was ridiculous. Like the whole industry was being taken over by corporate interests at a rate that was just the same old repeat of big ag farming. And that was disappointing. And you really can't compete with that all that well when nobody cares about it. But for me, that farm was worth everything, every dime that was spent, even though, I got a lot of horror stories off of it that are ridiculous about people robbing each other and all this other stuff. It was kind of anti the whole point, like you said, of what the community should be. But whatever, good experience out of it that's irreplaceable that I can share with you. Normally on podcasts, I don't get into any of this stuff because it's kind of constricted to, what I do with the company and whatnot. But these are some of the investments, by the way, that the company made to understand, with partners, to understand how water played a role in this total equation.
Yeah, I really don't think that you find out the answers of life until you actually delve into all the different spectrums: science, spiritual, physical, mental. Literally, if you go into all, varieties of life, like idealistically, yes, you can find these things, whether it's conspiratorial, or ancient.
They all are connected.
It is all connected. We are on this flow, and I imagine how the universe is all on this magnetic flow, and there's actually theories on it. The scientists say that there's this magnetic flow. People speculate it's the consciousness flow. I think that it is this water flow. You know, when we look at into space, it's speculatively water. When we look down below under our Earth, it's more water. And I'm looking at other planets. I'm like, that's water around them. Some of these planets are made of different forms of water. Other universes, probably the same different thing. Like, I mean, same thing, and it's just different
Different
formation.
character,
Yeah,
different
different
tone,
colors. Yeah,
you know.
you know.
Still a harmony though. It's different
Yeah.
music. But yeah,
Dude,
man, let's
let's go
we'll
ahead and
talk
yeah, do this again,
after
man.
this and pick another topic for next one, and we'll kind of go into something you want to go into that's you know, some of the things we just went over now to kind of, you know, so you know what I'm aware of, so you can pick something that you groove with, so we can converse. You know what I mean? I want to do something that really engages you too, so it's a conversation.
Oh, I mean, this has been a much needed conversation for the masses, but also for spirituality and consciousness itself. I think that when we speak out into the universe with these words and with these intentions, it unlocks a variety of energies around. You know, it shines light and also helps. You know, different realities, different people's realities, minds, and pathways open. You know, it's been a blessing. Yeah, man. We'll go ahead and do talk afterwards. So go ahead and let my viewers know where they can find you, and then yeah.
Sure. So our website is naturalaction.com. And we sell, like you mentioned, we sell some mineral supplements for water that do wonderful things to the water. We sell, you know, portable shower, whole home, basic versions, flow form, what we call, you know, natural ionization of the water. We don't use, you know, electrical power to change the water. We kind of use a natural form. That's the basis. We're very founded in Victor Schauberger's philosophy and our design development. And then we have a new line of kind of more advanced stuff that's, you know, kind of getting a little bit more like fancy with magnetic arrays and manipulation of magnetic fields, ether fields to put more life force in the water. And we have a member site, you know, if y'all want to learn more specifically about water. I do webinars with like PowerPoints to show people pictures of how the universe works. I teach how the universe works from a unified standpoint. I teach body chemistry and soil chemistry, how to maintain that ideally. And I teach it from what I call the greats in history, that their work never really got out because it was oppressed by corporate interests. And I like to study all that work and bring it out and give them credit for it. And try and simplify it, right? To share it more easy. So we do a lot of that on the member site. I interview physicists. Like you talked about the neural network. I interview, this guy's really beautiful with water. He's a friend of mine. He was born on the same day as me, November 9th. And we had this like weird connection when we were studying.
Hey, happy late birthday.
Yeah. Thank you. Studying, you know, water and the ancient cultures and the Veda teachings and the Vril Society. And he's from Germany, right? And my family had a big German connection with the Freemasons that I was kind of interested in growing up. My dad was always plugging me pyramid and alien stories, you know what I mean, when I was growing up. And technology, like, you know, there'll probably be this in the future. You know, he was the one who inspired me to like get excited. And it was really dumb that I had to go through school and like not get anywhere towards that direction my dad kind of got me excited with. At any rate, some magical things happen with this guy. You know, I can probably share it another time so it doesn't become a tangent. But he said I asked him in the podcast, not a podcast, but webinar interview, what do you think water structure is going to come to be defined as? And he pulled up a picture and he said, this is where I think, and it's basically the same as outer space. It looks like a neurological network is what he said the real structure of water will come to be, because he said this is the real neurological network. That was his take.
That's kind of what I kind of said, like that we're on this water pathway and it's
Yeah.
a microcosm of a macrocosm.
Yeah.
Or other way around. Whatever.
Yeah, man.
Hey, man.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, dude. God bless. This has been a literally blessing. I honestly think that this is one of my best conversations today. This is my first year, but literally, man, being able to flow topics and hit a wide variety of notes. It's important because it helps people unground from learning in one certain way, like an analytical way. No, now we can realize it in a spiritual way. It and physical
whatever way works for you, you can come in that door and change you can change it mind, you can change it spirit, you can change it body, but in the end, all three are one and the same, and working on all three of them will benefit most. And I think you embody that, man. You enjoy what you do. I appreciate you, and I look forward to working with you.
Hey, this has been a blessing. All right, guys, you heard it. This is it. We're gonna go ahead and have another conversation another day for you guys. So keep in tune for this. All right, guys. Peace out.
Take care, Joseph.
Okay. Peace out. All right, guys. Go ahead, check out AquaCure and the coupon code that I got with Eagle Research, a hydrogen machine that is very powerful. It heals you, man. You guys heard all about water and how powerful it is. Now, right, my boy John right here had worked with George. So these two dudes are, some of the world's best at what they do. And George Wiseman gave you guys a coupon code for one of the most powerful technologies. Hey, use it over at eagle-research.com. The coupon code 509 Divine Pines to activate a 20% coupon code. And also, go check out Boomer Boost products for vitamins, supplements, and all the appropriate nutrition you need. As you heard John today, he said that without the proper nutrition, half of this water just doesn't do its job. Half of your energy just doesn't activate right. So that's why I like getting my Boost. They got organic blends specific to needs and specific to your requirements and whatever you want. They got vitamins, they got lignins, collagen, just awesome products. A very ancient, powerful barley blend that will kickstart you and your day. Barley's been mentioned in the Vedic text. It's been mentioned in the Bible as one of the superfoods. It might have an angel inside of it. We mentioned angels, how cannabis has angels with John today. And so barley might be the same. You guys go ahead and check out Boomer Boost products for your supplements needs over at boomerboost.com. Use coupon code 509 Divine Pines 10 off for 10% off your order. Hey guys, be blessed and be high. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Much love. Peace.
Meditating, analyzing everything I see, so I see new horizons. Took the acid, feeling blasted in my brain, so I've been sitting up inside it, thinking about the present and the future. I'm improving cause I am a trooper, never getting caught up in the loop. Got up out it cause I found the truth. Woke up to a beauty of the day, the sun is shining, so I'm finna stay. Sitting, soaking up all of the rays, till I feel it surging through my brain like some booger sugar. Did a lot of cane, experimented with it, couldn't name all the times I did it, feeling like a fade. Yeah, I'm really glad that I let it go, cause I gotta be prepped for the time when the plane ride is a new norm. So I know I'm gonna stay high, blaze on the ganja, feeling like I make my music go to another level while I take off. I can't ever stop this, fell in love with it, fit like a glove, so I'm never ever done with it. So now I'm about to rip another beat, ayy. One day I'll make a million in a week, yeah, shooting for the top spot. Feel like I'm a hot shot, like I really got a chance with it. I will not flop, somebody gonna make a dance when I pop off. Gonna have all the bitches taking all the tops off. I've been feeling like I'm really gonna kill it for the rest of my life, so I've been staying focused. In my soul, I've been feeling like $1 million, so I know that everything is really getting closer. Yeah, no posers, only been hanging with the ones I've chosen. Only all the people that are living in the right way, cause they spending every day growing. Yeah, no whole shit coming in my life and then leaving in a moment. That's the shit I'll never let into my life again, cause lately I've been feeling like I'm golden. Never showboat, I just showcase on my music that I made this far. Always knew that I could be the one that would get this far. Now I'm right here looking in my mirror, trying to figure out if there's any more fear, cause I'm getting rid of it all, yeah, I'm getting rid of it all. Meditating, analyzing everything I see, so I see new horizons. Took the acid, feeling blasted in my brain, so I've been sitting up inside it, thinking about the present and the future. I'm improving cause I am a trooper, never getting caught.
I love you all.